Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the Spoiler Supreme, and in this video we're going to be breaking down everything that episode 5 of What If entails. It's filled with Easter eggs, hidden details, and nods to the Marvel Comics zombie series, so sit back, shut up, and come with us as we go through it all. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, then watching past this point would be a grave mistake, as there will be heavy spoilers. If you enjoy the video, then please smash the thumbs up button and use your brains to make sure you never miss a video by subscribing to the channel. With that out of the way, it's nice to eat you. Now let's get into episode 5 of Marvel's What If. Okay, so after last week's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Sadness, What If has returned with one of the best episodes in the series so far that plays upon the long-running comic series Marvel Zombies. The entry reimagines how it would play out in the MCU, and it's got loads of cool twists and turns in it. Now what's a zombie's favourite shampoo? Head and Shoulders, eh? It's an oldie, but a goodie. Now we open at the start of Infinity War, namely when Hulk was transported through the Bifrost to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Whereas originally he came face to face with Doctor Strange and Wong at this point, he finds the world completely different to how he left it. The shots in this moment perfectly recapture the look of what happened in that film, and we watch as the camera not only spins over the New York skyline, but it also brings focus to the window at the top of the building. Bruce crashes through the stairs, much like how he did in that film, but Strange isn't there, and we now know that Wong never got that tuna melt. Now I love how much this looks like the film, and Bruce says Thanos is coming repeatedly, which is of course what he uttered in the movie. This actually also foreshadows the end of the episode, and yeah, what a way to set up that big cliffhanger early on. Now it is possible that the reason the Sanctorum in the No Way Home trailer is covered in snow is because Bruce crashed through the roof and then both Wong and Strange were dusted. I like how that action is sort of repeated here, and he cries out for some clothes, which is when we get our first look at Strange's cape, who becomes a big character in the entry. Now Bruce ends up grabbing one of the Sorcerer Garbs, and he didn't have to do this originally because he was given a suit by Strange and Wong. I always wondered whether Bruce's jacket was actually the one that Strange was wearing when he went down the stairs, so if you're a jacket connoisseur, then this is your time to shine in the comments. Now Bruce leaves the Sanctum Sanctorum and we see Bleecker Street completely abandoned. This is of course the opposite to how it was in Infinity War, as everyone was rushing around as the big donut ship hovered above the city. Donut ship, that's the kind of info you get here. Now both Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian then drop down, and the teleportation perfectly recaptures the scene from IW in which they landed in the street. Bruce tries to Hulk out, but he's having performance issues, and this of course mirrors what happened in Infinity War. Luckily, this time Banner isn't embarrassing anyone in front of the Wizard, but Hulk still isn't much help. Now, in the comics, the Hulk was a zombie that helped to eat Magneto, but upon turning back into Bruce, his stomach was too small to digest him and he split wide open. Bruce tried to turn back to the Hulk at several points, but he was unable to do it, so I appreciate how they've managed to tie in the MCU with the source material. Now several of these lines here are pulled directly from Infinity War, including Maw saying, "Hear me and rejoice, you are about to die at the hands of the children of Thanos." Hulk also says no, to which Bruce says, "What do you mean no?" which is another moment that's ripped right out of the movie. Now just as he's about to monologue, a portal appears behind Maw's head, and in pops Tony's repulsor blaster. The iconography of the three walking through the portal of course plays upon when Black Panther and co entered the battle at the end of Endgame, and we quickly learn exactly why the streets are so empty. We are supposed to initially believe that this is going to be a scene similar to the Portals one, but they spoiled it in the marketing and let us know that it was zombies ahead of time. But if you didn't say that, big surprise! Now the Avengers go into full overkill mode, and we see how fast the virus works when Obsidian and Maw are instantly turned. Tony turns round to reveal his face, and the idea of a zombie Tony was first hinted at in Far From Home during the Mysterio illusion scene. It's a great moment, and I don't know if I'm reading into it too much here, but I got a lot of flashes of the first zombie reveal from Resident Evil, as the turn and growl are very similar. What do you call a zombie version of Ebony Maw? Ebony Gnaw. Now the ghouls turn their attention to Bruce, but luckily he's saved by the cape and a couple of familiar faces. We see that all the undead still have their powers, including Wong, who ends up beheaded by his own portal. Something similar of course happened in Infinity War when he used his portal as a way to chop off Cull Obsidian's hand. Hope and Spider-Man arrive, and it's at this point that we learn exactly what happened for the virus to be born. Mirroring the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Hank journeyed into the quantum realm in order to find his wife Janet. Turns out that Janet had contracted a quantum virus that corrupted her brain, and she started to feast upon him when he arrived. Now, this is actually a nod to the comics, as in that the virus came through a hero from another dimension. They landed on Earth and quickly started infecting everyone, and this is somewhat mirrored when Janet and Hank return from the quantum realm and unleash hell. Whereas in Ant-Man and the Wasp we got a nice family reunion, we see the pair lash out and attack Scott. He slams his hand against the glass in the lab, and this idea of hands pressing against glass in zombie franchises has appeared in a lot of films over the years, and also games like the Left 4 Dead series. It could also be a nod to Titanic, and I believe that the head does go on. Hey, having that is really bad. Now, as we touched on earlier, the episode is based heavily on the Marvel Zombies comic series. I'm going to be doing a quick breakdown of the first graphic novel of that, so we can see some of the similarities here and also the differences. However, if you don't want to hear me rambling, then timecodes will be linked below, but I absolutely love this run, and it's probably the only time that I'm ever going to be able to talk about it in a video. Written by The Walking Dead's Robert Kirkman, we pick up in the aftermath of a zombie plague that has wiped out most of humanity. Brought in from another dimension, this disease pretty much keeps those that it infects relatively intelligent, though they now hunger for human flesh. We open with one of the survivors, Magneto, running through a city as he's chased by the undead. He actually manages to cut off the top half of Captain America's head by using his shield against him, and he of course appears in this episode. A big difference though is that Spider-Man is one of the undead for the whole story, and there's a running joke throughout it that his leg is pretty much hanging on by a thread. We also discover that he ate his own wife and Aunt May, and he's one of the funniest characters in it. Yeah, no, it doesn't sound that funny, but it is when you read the book, just trust me. Now, at one point, we discover that TChalla is actually being kept alive by a zombified Hank Pym, and he's being sedated so that Hank can eat him slowly. This of course happens later on in the episode, but I'll touch upon that more as we get to that bit. One of the big problems that the undead have is that they're constantly famished, and as the arc goes on, we watch them travelling through the universe, eating absolutely everything. Hank's wife Janet discovers TChalla and wants some of him too, but he bites her head off before trying to cover it up. TChalla eventually escapes with Janet, and he travels into space with some survivors who've been living on a satellite in order to avoid the plague that has ravaged mankind. During the book, the Silver Surfer arrives and brings forth Galactus, which leads to a big showdown between him and the undead. There's such a good moment where Wolverine tries to cut the Surfer, but because his flesh is decomposing, his claws hitting against his skin just cracks his arm wide open. The zombies end up winning, and after consuming Galactus, they become a group known as Galacti. They head out into the universe, consuming all, and 5 years later we watch as T'Challa travels back to Earth with Janet Pym. We realise that the hunger eventually passes if you don't feed for so long, and in the ruins of the planet they create New Wakanda. Now the second book picks up on this story, and it questions whether T'Challa is fit to reign, and also has him become a zombie himself. The main ones of course return to Earth, and it's a really fun read that I don't want to spoil too much as I'll be here forever, but yeah, definitely check it out if you've enjoyed this episode and what I've been saying so far. Marvel Zombies also appeared in 2015's Secret Wars, and if the rumours of that story popping up in the MCU are true, then it's something that you should definitely get your dead around. Now from here we watch how it spreads from San Francisco, and this is of course the city in which Ant-Man and the Wasp took place. Though the Avengers arrived to save the day, a tiny Hank ended up turning them, and having superpowered people amongst their ranks just helped the plague to spread even faster. Cut to Peter making a home video on how to survive the zombie apocalypse, and this is very similar to the rules for surviving Zombieland, which opened up that film. This video of course pulls from the start of Homecoming, and whereas in that opening Peter started it by saying Queens, here he introduces us to New York, home of the zombie apocalypse. Happy Hogan ends up getting used as a prop, and I think it's hilarious that his t-shirt says he's saving himself for Thor. I thought this might kind of foreshadow that he'd get eaten by him, but at this point Thor was of course in space. Now his skills also include driving because he was Tony's chauffeur, as well as boxing. In Iron Man 2 we watched him training Tony to box, and this was a nod to the comics as the character was a boxer in them. Here we meet another MCU mainstay, aka Kurt, who you might know from the Ant-Man franchise. He's wearing an ex-con security jacket, and this was of course the company that he and his friends set up in that movie. His skills include languages, because he speaks many, Slavic folklore, because he's constantly going on about Baba Yaga, and crime, because, well, the guy was a burglar. Now we can also see that under his name is Resident Weirdo, which might be a play on Resident Evil, though that might be a reach. Now Happy wears one of Iron Man's gloves, and we saw him pull this out in Civil War when facing off against Bucky for the first time. Peter does a great job of explaining the rules, and we see Bucky, whose skills include murder, killer arm, and what my wife calls me when I have a nap. Now next we meet Sharon Carter, aka the Bloody Power Broker, and her nickname is the Blonde Bond, aka Bond, James Bond. Weirdly, the nickname the Blonde Bond was actually given to Daniel Craig, as he was the first James Bond actor that was blonde. Now her skills include spycraft, first aid, and eulogies, because she of course spoke at her Aunt Peggy's funeral. Next we meet Okoye, who has arrived to find out what happened to T'Challa. We learn that she's travelled from Wakanda, and because the heroes aren't there to stop Thanos, he arrives on the planet to get the Mind Stone, but is quickly swamped by the zombies. Now we see that the heroes are hiding in train cars suspended above buildings, and I don't know how the zombies didn't get them, as Tony can fly, but never mind. Now this might actually be paying tribute to the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trailer, which was released before September 11th. Spider-Man ended up stopping a bank robbery, and he strung up the character's helicopter between the two iconic landmarks. The trailer was taken out of rotation after that tragedy, and though it might not be intentional, the imagery here did remind me a lot of that. Now, I'm not trying to offend anyone there, as we are coming up to the 20th anniversary, and I just thought I'd mention it due to the similarities. Now we learn that progress has been made on a cure, and this is located at Camp Lehigh, which you will know as being the place that Captain America trained at, and it's also where S.H.I.E.L.D. first set up their operations after changing from the SSR. I know I keep saying which you will know, as I like to give you credit too for stuff even if you don't know it, and remember, yeah, the thumbs up button's right there. Now they travel across the bridge on the lead up to Central Station, and this was of course an iconic location that appeared in the Avengers movie during their team up moment. Traveling in miniature mode, they're shocked by a big zombie, and the van of course also did this in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Okoye drops a sick burn and says Wakanda doesn't need horror movies because they have American reality TV shows. Maybe you should have watched them horror movies, and you wouldn't have got to that point. Now, she wants to split up, which is something you should never do in a zombie apocalypse, and Peter correctly guesses that this is a bad idea. Happy cocks up his arm much like a shotgun, and this is because of the glove, but a shotgun is of course a weapon that's often used in zombie films. At this point, Falcon begins his attack on the group, and we see that he unleashes a murder of crows. In the comics, Falcon can actually telepathically communicate with birds, and he's brought along Hawkeye too, Nice little pun that. Now the fight through Central Station is awesome, and Sharon ends up using Happy's glove against him as Okoye cuts Falcon in half. I think it's hilarious how after this happened that Bucky isn't that upset, and it just kind of comments on the relationship that the pair have. In the subway, Peter tries to pull the train onto the track, and he's attacked by the undead, but luckily the Cape swoops in to save the day, and it becomes very much one of their closest allies throughout the episode. They head out to Lehigh, however it's not all train sailing, and Zombie Cap arrives and attacks their ride. He gives Sharon a love bite that's way worse than what they were doing in Civil War, even though, yeah, she is your niece mate, and that's a bit gross. Now he and Bucky go head to head in a scene that mirrors the fight in the Winter Soldier, and it's a brilliant action moment. I think it's hilarious how Bucky decapitates him and says, "Guess this is the end of the line," and "I'm with you till the end of the line" was of course a saying that the two said to cement their friendship. Hope flies in Sharon's mouth and bursts her open from the inside, and we see that she got scratched. A main character getting infected, and then worrying that they might turn, is of course a trope that has showed up in several zombie films. However, Peter says that she represents hope for the cure, and I love how the episode changes from an action-packed zombie shootout into an emotional, introspective look at how Peter has lost a lot but that he keeps smiling. He utters similar words to what Cap did in Endgame, namely that they have to keep going. Now this speech is very important, as I believe it's the first time that Uncle Ben has been acknowledged by name in the MCU. He has been absent throughout outside of a briefcase with his initials on, but I'm glad they're finally really referencing the character. The train comes to a stop, and the heroes realise that the only way to get to the camp is by moving through a zombie horde. Hope very much blames herself for bringing Janet back, and she grows gigantic in order to transport them across the field. The sun's getting real low as we head into the final act, and it's an emotional goodbye for her as she tells Peter to smile before being swamped by the undead. Bucky realizes that at the camp they aren't attacking or swarming them, and we come face to face with Vision, who has made his home inside Arnim Zola's brain. Turns out the Mind Stone, or rather its ability to control people's consciousness, is something that is the key to reversing things. We see that Scott is a head in a jar, similar to the ones from Futurama, and beyond this it's actually a pretty deeply layered Easter egg. In the comics it was of course Janet who was the beheaded one that ended up becoming an ally, and in the zombie movie Reanimator we watched as a head was brought back to life. Scott dropped some zombie puns that really put him ahead of me in terms of comedy, and we learn that they need access to a satellite network, which may be a nod to how the heroes survived in the comics. They make a plan to journey to Wakanda, which of course also appeared in the source material as a haven, and Bucky learns that Vision has went a bit Ultron and that he's been feeding people to Wanda. Similar to the graphic novel, Bucky comes across TChalla with his leg cut off, and we also discover Scarlet Witch is being fed the heroes that arrive there. Much like Wanda in WandaVision, Viz has went too far in attempting to bring her back, and he's willing to sacrifice anyone to keep her alive until he manages to cure her. It leads to an awesome final act in which the Avengers face off against a zombified Scarlet Witch, and after realizing what he's done, Vision decides to help the heroes. Scott ends up becoming buddies with the Cape, and he shouts Wingardium Leviosa, which you might know, well you might, I don't know you might know as being the levitation spell from the Harry Potter series. Vision rips out the Mind Stone similar to what Thanos did to him, and you might notice that his body turns grey upon this happening, which is of course another thing that happened in Infinity War. He gives them the Mind Stone, but the undead, realizing that he's destroyed, start to storm the camp, and Bucky buys them time against the witch. She's devastated her love is gone, and angered at his death, she throws Bucky away, which I really hope that he survived. Scarlet Witch blocking the bullets could also be a nod to WandaVision, namely when her son did the same thing. Now we get a similar moment to the heroes returning to the hangar in Civil War, and the witch flies to Bruce to bite him, but he beats her back. Bruce sacrifices himself, and whereas the Hulk has refused to come out at this point in the episode, he finally hulks up to answer the question of who would win between him and Scarlet Witch. Now it's at this point I realised that Peter Parker hadn't been wearing his mask at all, because everyone was dead and he didn't need to hide his identity. Just a little bit of trivia there. The heroes escape, but as they fly out, Hope resurrects and grabs the Quinjet. Really nice little setup and payoff to which Scott is of course gutted about, and this idea of hope once more carries them forward as they travel across the skies. Zombie movies ending with survivors flying out was a trope that was started all the way back in the Dawn of the Dead, and we get a very poignant speech from T'Challa in which he says death is not the end. Sadly, Chadwick Boseman, who played him, passed away, and this moment holds even more weight knowing what happened. Now they arrive at Wakanda, but we see that there's now a zombie Thanos there, and all that he needs is the Mind Stone. They've just brought that, and it's a great cliffhanger that I really hope we get to see the outcome of sooner rather than later. Now as for my thoughts on the episode, as I'm sure you can guess, I really enjoyed it, and this feels like another great what if. I think that this might even be the episode that people show newcomers to say, look, it is a good show, and overall, yeah, lots to take from this. According to the reports, this week was actually supposed to be the Party Thor one, but for whatever reason they changed it to this, and I'm so glad that they did. Whether the leaks were wrong, whether this was always meant to be the case, or whether Marvel looked at the leaks and thought, yeah, let's just shuffle it up, I really don't know, but this was such a nice change of pace from what I was expecting. What I love about What If is that one week you can be seeing the origin story for a character, the next you can be having a fun ride through the galaxy, and whether it's a murder mystery or an introspective look at what loss can do to a person, What If really has it all. I know there's a lot that aren't vibing with the series as I read comments on it every week, but as someone who's on board with what they're doing, I have to say I've been really enjoying it. I think it's very much a case of personal taste, and I know some that have loved an episode one week and hated the next one, which can lead to things feeling very up in the air. I actually do enjoy all of them, except for maybe the twist in the third, which I had some issues with. However, for me, it's doing way more good than it is bad. The comic did a great job of keeping this aesthetic going and making it crazier and crazier, so I'd love to revisit this universe over and over again. Now, following on from our leaks part of the video last week, we have some brand new reports on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness that tie into What If. I will be discussing some spoilers, so if you don't want anything ruined, then I recommend that you check out the video, and thank you for sticking with me for this long. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button on the way out, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. There you go. What a bunch of losers they were, eh? Come to a channel called Heavy Spoilers and don't want spoilers. Never mind. Now, last week, after Doctor Strange Supreme arrived on the scene, I put out a video saying I'd love to see the character in live action form during the Multiverse of Madness. I kinda went off into a fan theory tangent and talked about why I thought he was the true villain of the movie, which, yeah, we know I'm good at guessing them, and I just think that would be absolutely amazing to see in this film. The world will forget that I said Matt Murdock was in the No Way Home trailer and that Mephisto was behind it all. However, it looks like he might actually be showing up in the movie, and Scooper Daniel RPK put out a post saying that he will indeed be dropping in on the Multiverse of Madness. Evidence to support this, or rather the lack of, has been unearthed when poring over old images and interviews. At the time of filming in the Multiverse of Madness, Benedict did a chat over Zoom, but he hid his face during the entire interview so that people couldn't get a good look at him. Let's play the clip.
And by the way, you're looking at a ceiling because I can't show you my face because I'm filming Doctor Strange and it's all embargoed what I look like. Anyway, just to explain why you're looking at a very attractive ceiling in a trailer.
Now, very suspicious, and I think that had he come on screen and just had the whole just turned into a Sith Lord look, then it would be pretty obvious by now exactly what had happened, so it's probably for the best that he stayed out the way. Now, I also must say that this doesn't confirm anything, and the guy might have just had a cold sore, but it does make a lot of sense that Strange Supreme would be in the film. We are of course dealing with the multiverse, and him coming face to face with a darker version of himself would be absolutely brilliant. It might also explain who has Wanda's kids captive, and if he had access to the library of Cagliostro, then he could have also gained a version of the Darkhold and have spoken to her through that. That's all theoretical at the moment, but with rumours of Captain Carter also appearing in the film, I think What If is becoming a series that people definitely need to stay locked into. Anyway, I'd love to hear whether you think it's Doctor Strange Supreme, or if you think it's a cold sore and that he should go see the doctors, hey? The comment section is yours to write whatever you like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode as well. We are running a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of the Zack Snyder DC trilogy on the 30th of September, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers if that's you. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the Rick and Morty finale, which will be linked on screen right now. We pointed out all the Easter eggs we could find in episode 9 and 10, and it's definitely worth checking out as it's one of our better works, which isn't tough, let's be honest. If not, then thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.